Hello, GDG Clouders. Good evening, everyone. Good evening here in London. But nowadays, you're interacting from so many different parts of the world. So, good part of the day from wherever you are. So, the way the meetup is going to happen today is if you have any questions, you can write it on the chat, and then Sach is going to answer them. We could give you some time in the end to answer the questions if there are too many, but some of them maybe he can answer on the go if it's not that many. So let's just talk about GDG Cloud London and the upcoming events. If you go to our gdgcloud.com, you can see we have counting this event and another two events upcoming this week. One of them is on machine learning, and the other one, which is on, so let's go chronologically. We have the one on Thursday, which is Cloud Run, overcoming the challenges of building and deploying. And on Saturday, we have machine learning for genomics. So you can see that GDG Cloud London, we're talking about many different topics here. And the topic of today is actually talking about virtual assistants, talking about chatbots and automated conversation. I actually was thinking of starting this whole thing saying, okay, Google, turn the lights on. Just, to get this a bit tacky, but then I saw the event went live and I forgot to do it. But okay, better late than never. And I'm sorry if I achieved any of the Google Assistants out there. Anyway, so talking about the assistant as a whole, let me just see if you're talking to me in the chat here. Some people said hi. We have Sam, Eddie, Rohit. So feel free to interact in the chat. Some people are doing some of these meetups using Zoom, where you can also interact with your video. But in this one today, you're basically going to see Sach, his face and his screen, and you're going to interact via chat. So about the Google Assistant, as I was saying, so obviously I just used my virtual assistant here to help me turn the lights on. And we have many other things that you can do with the virtual assistant, and they not necessarily have to be only with voice or only with text. It could be tapping on the screen. It could be interacted to your home. It could be a smart home. It could be using some other different types of hardware. So there's an infinity of things that you can do with it. And many of you who have watched my, hi Tibor, who have watched my talks before, I have talked a lot about Dialogflow and about actions on Google and the Google Assistant. But today there is a content which is kind of brand new. And even though it's brand new, our guest speaker here has done so many videos about it. He's kind of he's owning it. So I'm really, really pleased that we from GDG Clouder is going to get some content from him today firsthand. He's going to share the links to his social media, to his YouTube, so you can see all this amazing content that I'm telling you about. And just before I give him the chance to introduce himself, I just want to say, as I said before, here at GDG Cloud London, there is cloud in the name, but we're welcoming of different technologies. So if there is something that you'd like to see here, which is not linked to cloud directly, or if you'd like to give a talk, if you've never given a talk before, we're very welcoming of first-time speakers. So if you think you have a cool project to showcase, or even if you think you're not good enough or anything like that, there's no such a thing here. We can help you get started. It could be a 5-minute talk. We're very happy to get everyone started giving talks so that one day you can be like Sach here. Anyway, I'm going to invite him here to the talk right now so he can introduce himself with his own words and tell us more about conversation actions for the Google Assistant using the Actions Builder. Come on here, Sash. Hello. Is it good evening there?
Yeah. Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yes, I can hear
Hey
perfectly.
everyone. Hey everyone. This is Sachin here. Thanks a lot, Amanda, for inviting me to GDG Cloud London. This is my first time giving a talk in this specific part of the world, or probably virtually right now. So thanks a lot for inviting me to your session. And in terms of today's topic, we are going to build conversational actions for the Google Assistant using the Actions Builder. So, just as Amanda mentioned, give a short introduction about myself. My name is Sachin Kumar. I'm a Google developer expert for the Google Assistant. I also head the Google developer groups in Doha. I'm also the chief technology officer of TupeloLife, which is a connected healthcare company based out of Dallas, Texas. And apart from that, I do a lot of talks, workshops. I do mentor a lot of startups in the region. And along with all that, I write a lot of blog articles, tech articles on Medium. And recently, with the whole COVID situation, tried exploring YouTube as another option to deliver content. So I've started a brand new channel called Tech with Such. So if you're interested about cloud, machine learning, voice assistants, AR, VR, all of these combined, that's what the channel is all about. And of course, at the end of this specific session, if you have any questions, I can directly answer that to the best of my knowledge. At the same time, if you'd like to build something and you want to showcase that, do let me know through Twitter, so that we can showcase what you have built using the tools that we are using today. At the same time, if you have any questions or something, you can directly, anything related with the video, you can leave a comment in that specific video. Or if it's anything to do with your own action, you can directly message me in Twitter so that I can help you guys out. So with that being said, as I mentioned, I have my own channel, which is called Tech with Such. So I try to deliver content as much as possible. So I mentioned here weekly. Sometimes it might be more than a week, but I'm trying my best to kind of deliver the best content for you guys. And the content is actually meant for users or people out there who actually want to build from scratch. So it would actually take you step by step, keeping in mind that everyone out there are not experts. So it's actually an easy step-by-step process for you to actually get going. So I can see someone has asked, what's your Twitter? So it's actually Sachin_ATK is the Twitter handle. So you can actually do that. You can actually connect with me through that. And the link for the YouTube channel is actually shown here, which is bit.ly.com/techwithsuch. So you can actually use this link. I think Amanda would also be sharing this link in the live comment section. So you can have access to that as well. So to begin today's session, I would like this to be as interactive as possible so we can understand the basics, and once we understand the basics, we can actually start building. And the best way to learn is by actually doing a hands-on session. So I would like to build something with you guys today, and hopefully it's fun. Hopefully it gets there where you actually build together so we can actually do something cool today. So I'm pretty sure by now, if you guys are joining us, for those who don't know what a Google Assistant is, so Google Assistant is your own personal voice assistant from Google. So it's your own virtual assistant that Google has provided, which can actually help things get done in the best possible manner for you. So for me, based on my experience, I've used the Google Assistant for when Google actually launched the assistant, I started exploring with it. And then ever since, I can say probably the last 2-3 years, I've not even used a remote at home. So everything is voice activated, including lights, the door locks, the curtains, the projectors at home, everything is automated. So
Even door locks.
what's that?
Even
Yeah,
door locks.
even the door locks, yes. So everything is kind of like automated at this point. So uh, I honestly don't know where the remotes are at this point. I know it's somewhere in the house. So that's how it is, to a point that my 2-year-old actually wakes up and says that whenever he wants to listen to music, he says, "Hey G." I'm not going to say Google because it's going to trigger a lot of devices out there. So it's as easy as it is. It's very powerful in terms of understanding the conversations that you say. So Google Assistant handles a lot of those functionalities. So we talked about uh, home automation is one of the examples that I've given. And with understanding what Google Assistant is, for people out there who's both Android as well as who has an iOS device, I would highly encourage that you guys actually try out the Google Assistant if this is your first time to do so. And you might be wondering, okay, we understand what Google Assistant is. It's a virtual assistant by Google that basically helps you in a lot of things. So what is the next thing? Like why is it important for us as developers? So this specific screen kind of sums it up, right? So it's readily accessible across 1 billion plus devices. So as developers, this is a very interesting thing, because unlike your mobile applications where you build, you upload it into your Play Store, you need to the user would need to download it and install it. Regardless of all that, once your action, so we call it action over here, and for the remaining part of the session you would actually be hearing me specify action, is because unlike application, where what we're used to, in the voice world we actually call it an action. So action is nothing but like a voice app. Okay, so for developers it's very important, because by building an action for the Google Assistant, it's readily accessible across 1 billion plus devices. So that's the kind of reach you get as a brand, as a developer, or even as a business. So as a business, you have a brand, you want to reach uh, a large number of audience, this is the best way to do that. And if you already have an existing application, you can extend that application with the Google Assistant to deliver more functionalities for the users. So think about Uber. So right now, if you're gonna use Uber, you have to open up the app, use it, and then uh, set the location, and then you have to wait for the Uber driver to arrive. So it's still finding the application with a lot of app icons that we have lately. We still need to do those steps. So instead of that, just having a simple one-line conversation. So let's say, "Hey G, talk to Uber. I would like to go to so and so place." So if you have, of course, you have to provide permission in the first time, but the second time, when it knows that where exactly your location is, it will automatically assign the Uber driver to your nearest place and then set the location automatically just by having a simple conversation. So conversational actions are actually very powerful. So it really depends on how we design the conversational actions and how we can take it to the next level. So I can see some questions coming by.
Yeah, I can put the question up. Just talking about the action that you're saying, Sach, for the people who are building for Alexa, I think they call it skills, right? So Alexa skills, Google Assistant
Exactly.
actions. So here's the
Exactly.
question. Oh, that's not the question. That's the question from Cassandra. Let me put this up. One sec. Okay, this is the one.
So I do have one comment which says, "How do you prevent the AI outsmarting you and turning against you in your house?" Uh, a great question. Sometimes it does things that, for example, once I had a similar session where I was actually giving a talk to a university students, and I was actually about to say to turn off the lights, and since the conversation was going on, I didn't complete the entire conversation. I said turn off the lights. It didn't. I didn't specify the lights. I said studio room. Then it automatically understood that, okay, he's not given me anything, so turn off the studio room. And what happened was I have a smart plug connected to all of this, the entire room. So when I say turn off, it turns off the lights, it turns off my entire computer, and I was locked out of session. So that's a funny thing about the home automation as such. But when it works really well. So you do have to get used to it for probably the first 2-3 days, but eventually here and there you do have that. And regarding things like smart locks, of course, you can't just have anyone access it. You have the voice match as one security layer. At the same time, you also have a passcode. So whenever I say unlock the front door, it will ask me for my security code. Only after that it will unlock. So the good thing about it is, let's say I'm going to the office, my wife is not there at home, nobody's there, but we forgot to lock the door. I can still lock the door from office. So or pretty much any part of the world. So those are some of the things about the assistant as such. Now, what are the other reasons? So some of the other reasons is also that you also have the Google Assistant also provides language support across 30 plus languages. And again, this specific slide that you're seeing over here is not the final one. It's being updated on a regular basis. So you have more number of language support out there. So if you are planning on building conversational actions, it's very easy to actually take that whole concept and build for other languages as well. Okay. So moving on from there, let's actually look at what are the 3 components of the whole Google Assistant. So we have the Google Assistant, which is your own personal virtual assistant from Google, where you can have conversations to basically get things done. At the same time, when you're talking about conversations, you can actually invoke the assistant through voice. You can also do it through chat you can actually have a chat with the Google Assistant and it would do the same things. The second part of it is you have devices with the Google Assistant built in. So I do have some slides out here where I'll actually show you, apart from the devices that you get out in the market, you can also integrate the assistant in your own devices. So using the Assistant SDK. So I'll just give you a glimpse of what I did like 2-3 years back. So is your primary language supported? Yes. So whichever so this is by Amanda. So just let us know if based on the language support that you have seen, is your language supported in that list that you saw. If not, you can actually go to Actions on Google and check the documentation and see the list of supported languages. And with the devices built in, the Google Assistant is across multiple devices. We are talking about Android phones, iPhones, voice-activated speakers like these over here. You also have the mini smart speakers. You have the smart displays like the Nest Hub Max. So you have a wide variety of options. You also have like smart watches. And even for example, you have the Google Assistant now enabled in cars, right, using the Android Auto. So you have a variety of options where you can actually reach the assistant. And finally, for developers or for people who's actually building to extend the functionalities of the application for the assistant, is the Actions on Google. So the Actions on Google is the developer platform where we would actually go today to actually build our own conversational actions for the Google Assistant. So think about Actions on Google as a developer platform where you would extend the functionalities of the Google Assistant. Because think about Google Assistant can already do a ton of things by its own, right from doing your daily tasks to setting reminders to setting, let's say, playing music to cracking jokes. So it does a lot of things. But apart from all of that, if you have your own use case or if you want to build your own application, voice application or action, you can actually do that by going to the Actions on Google console. Okay, so that's the developer platform. So before we actually start going through with conversational actions, I would actually like to show some demo of some of the things that I built over the years. So this is the first one. So I call it the Google Home book, pun intended. But what I was seeing is all of these devices that Google does. Uh, it's great, but you need to have this connected to like a power source all the time, right? And I used to go out there and do a lot of these talks, and then I kind of figured out, okay, what's the best way that I can build my own device and have the Google Assistant built in. So this was an attempt for that. So let me actually see if I can show you guys this. Hey Google, what's the time?
The time is 1:34 p.m.
Hey Google, how tall is Mount Everest?
Mount Everest is 8,848 meters tall.
Hey Google, tell me a joke.
This might make you laugh. What did the teacher do with the student's report on the history of cheese? She graded it.
Hey Google, sing a song.
I'm a live here, I've been waiting for years. I can be on Broadway if only I could dance.
So that was one example where you can actually integrate the Google Assistant in your own devices. In my case, what I wanted to do was have the entire thing in the form of a book. And the title was actually better as well. So be cooler than everyone. So the whole idea is from the outside, it actually looks like a book, but you have a Raspberry Pi device inside, along with the only thing that's visible outside is this small microphone. So I had like an extensible USB cable microphone over here, which then goes inside, connects to a Raspberry Pi, which is then loaded with the Google Assistant SDK. So you can actually do pretty cool things with the Google Assistant. So this was one such example of how you can use the Assistant SDK into your own devices. So the next thing is the home automation part. So let me actually show you that as well. So while this loads, let's have a look at the chat. Are there defined guidelines and directions for creating conversational programming language and voice assistant development tools? Yes, there is. So if you actually go to the actions on Google console, and the documentation actually gives you predefined guidelines as well as best design guidelines for actually building conversational actions. So I'm just going to keep the volume low just so that I don't trigger a lot of devices out there. So this was, I think, taken 2017. So yeah, few years back. But you can see over here this. I've come a long way from this. So the entire house is now automated. So here you can see that when I say TV time, it dims all the lights in my living room. It automatically turns on my projector. It then turns on the home theater system that you see over here. Okay. And at the same time, it switches to the right source. So I have multiple sources, like I have like Xbox over here, and then I do have the cable connection. So it switches to the right source, and here you can see that it moves once I start. So all I have to do is one single command, and all of these other actions that's happening is automatically done. So everything is automated. The other thing that I also did was I used a motion sensor in front of where I'm sitting, the couch. So whenever I come and sit in the couch and I check if it's greater than like 6 p.m. in the evening, if a motion detector is detected at that specific spot, it will automatically do the same thing. Dim the lights, turn on the projector, and then I have the entertainment system going on over there. So these are some of the things with home automation. Then the other thing that I did was, when I say cleaning time over here, so this was a vacuum robot which didn't have any Wi-Fi connectivity. So I had to come up with, be creative and come up with different ways of actually connecting this with the Google Assistant. So the way how I did this was connecting the Google Assistant with IFTTT and then triggering another device, which was then sending the IR signals back into the vacuum robot. So these are different things that you can do with the Google Assistant. So that was a home automation demo. And for people who are actually interested in building their own hardware and having the Google Assistant, this is one way of doing it. So I've written a blog article step by step on how you can actually build your own smart speaker with Google Assistant, Google Cloud. So this would actually take you through the nuances of what are the different elements and components that's required to build your own applications from scratch, load it to Raspberry Pi, and how you can actually go on from there. So all the commands, step-by-step instructions with screenshots are pretty much available there. So I hope with all of these different examples, you get a good idea about the capabilities of the Google Assistant as such. But let's actually move on to conversations, right? So this is the part where we'll be covering today, and we'll be actually building something based on that. So with conversations being said, the best thing for us to have is, the best way we can interact with each other is having a conversation. And that's why the Google Assistant or voice assistants in general are becoming more popular right now, is because the fact that you have conversations, you can have a conversation and get things done. So from a high level, this is what happens. So when the user actually gives an input, the Google Assistant passes that input, does all the speech to text translation, everything is handled by the Google Assistant, then sends, if that is supposed to actually go to your action or voice application, it would then go there, return back the response, and the response is then sent back to the user. So from here, the Google Assistant again does the text to speech conversion and then is sent back to the user. And what was the old way of building conversational actions? Again, just keep in mind, this specific method still holds true. So nothing has changed. It's just that we have new tools to actually build for the Google Assistant right now. So whatever you are seeing in this part of the section still holds true. And I'll get there why it's important as well. So the old way of actually building conversational actions involved something like this. So we have the Google smart speaker, or let's say your phones or any device with the Google Assistant built in. Whenever you have a conversation with it and you specify like talk to personal chef. So this talk to personal chef is like the invocation name that you give. So personal chef being your application name or action name. And then the moment Google identifies this, it knows that, okay, this specific conversation means I need to pass this to this voice action or voice application. It then does all the speech to text conversion, NLP, machine learning, all of that is handled over here. And then it says, sure, let me handle this, hand it over to this specific voice action. And then what happens is it then sends it back to Dialogflow. So this icon over here, if for people who are not familiar with Dialogflow, we'll actually understand what Dialogflow does and why it's important and how it's a very powerful tool as well. So Dialogflow is where our entire conversation goes. It triggers an intent, and then everything from there onwards is handled between Dialogflow and your backend. So your backend can be anything. So in this case, you can see it's a Google Cloud platform, and you can actually send the conversations back to your database, do your backend logic, and send it back to the user. So this was the old way of actually achieving it. And let's actually step back and just have a look at this specific conversation. Well, it's kind of cold outside, so I'd like to have something to warm me up, like a hot soup, and I want it fast. So if you actually think about this specific conversation, I use it a lot in most of my sessions, is because if you actually look at this conversation and ask any developer to actually write a regular expression for this kind of a problem, and to understand what exactly this conversation or statement means, it's quite complex, right? I mean, with all of the things. So let's have a look at it. You're having cold, warm, hot, and fast all in one single sentence. And the thing about here is cold, warm, hot. All the three instances over here means completely different things in terms of the context, right? So here, cold means basically he's talking about the weather outside or the temperature. Then he would like to warm him up, and the only thing where he actually talks about the food is he wants a hot soup and he wants it fast. So here again, the action was a personal chef. It's based on recipe. So the action intends to gather information from you and give you a recipe based on that. So in that case, it's very complex for us to actually go out there and build a logic or code based on this conversation. And that's where Dialogflow comes into play. So Dialogflow was a tool. I mean, it's still a platform where you can actually create conversational actions, chatbots, and easily build those and integrate with multiple other platforms. And the main two components of Dialogflow are intent matching and entity. So intents are basically, let's say that you have an appointment, right? So I'm having a voice action where I say, I would like to set up an appointment tomorrow at 3 p.m. Okay. And the intent of that is scheduling an appointment. So that can be your intent. So appointment scheduler or scheduler can be your intent over there. And entities are key information. So I've mentioned like tomorrow at 3 p.m. So we need to gather from our backend, we need to gather tomorrow, 3 p.m., probably the person's name, contact number. So these are like important key information that we need to identify from the user, from the conversation. So those are basically entity extractions or entities. So let's have a look at some of the chat. Okay, so let's keep it going. I can see, yeah, I can see Amanda is actually taking care of the chat as well. Thanks a lot, Amanda. You're doing a great job. So moving forward, so if you have we'll give you the links for the slides in the chat as well. So if you actually look at this specific video, this would actually give you how Dialogflow actually works. Okay, and I'm not gonna play it over here because we'll actually learn the new tool. So is there a better way to build conversational actions? So let me actually explain why Google went back to the drawing board and built a new tool. So Dialogflow is great, and I can exactly tell you when and where to use Dialogflow assets. So if you're building a chatbot meant for multiple platforms, let's say Dialogflow has the capability, once you build in Dialogflow, you can integrate with the Google Assistant, yes. At the same time, you can also build it for, integrate that with, let's say, Facebook Messenger, Slack, Skype, Twilio, and a lot of other platforms out there. So you actually have these integrations out there. And I believe that before you can also have, I still feel that you also have the ability to link it with Alexa skills as well. Of course, it won't direct integration is not there, but it would give you the necessary files to actually go out there and easily replicate the same with the Alexa as well. So Dialogflow is like a tool where you can easily design your conversations, and then kind of have support over multiple platforms. It also has, like, let's say, if you want to build something like a chatbot, integrate that into your website. And I think I've seen Amanda's website has like a chatbot at the bottom right corner. I'm not sure whether she's used Dialogflow for that, but you can do stuff like that. You can.
Flow for that, and then I used I think the integration is called Communicate. So basically, I use Dialogflow, and then I also integrate to another one. So there's many integrations which are possible.
Right. So you can do a lot of things with Dialogflow, but one of the constant feedbacks that we were all receiving while we were building with Dialogflow and the Google Assistant was it's two different platforms. So you had to design your conversations in Dialogflow and then jump over to Actions on Google, where you actually test your conversations. And it was going back and forth and back and forth. And the other reason was also that Dialogflow was kind of designed more keeping in mind like chatbots as such. It's great for that. But Google wanted to kind of build a tool which kind of unifies everything, especially for the Google Assistant, and what's the best way to actually build for the Google Assistant in all in one specific platform. So that's when they came up with the Actions Builder. So the Actions Builder has a lot of great features. We'll go through that one by one in today's session. And then you can actually see how this tool can be easily used by not just developers, but also conversation designers. So the reason I say conversation designers is just like how we have UI UX designers for mobile applications, and you have developers separately. For voice, it's a completely different ball game. I mean, designing for voice also requires some skill in actually interpreting the whole conversation, right? Because unlike a mobile application or a web application, the entire thing is limited by the UI, right? So you have buttons, you have different options to navigate the screen, and it's all based on clicks. So the user has limited capacity where he or she can actually interact with the application. But when it comes to voice, there's no limitation over here. I can actually crack a joke. I can give a conversation which is completely not related to the action that I'm talking to. And you can actually go through a different workflow or a voice flow, conversational flow altogether. So with all that being said, another main advantage of using the Actions Builder is Google kept in mind that this is going to be a tool for both conversational designers as well as developers. So the designers can actually use the Actions Builder where they can actually design the entire conversation. And then from there, they can actually then, the developers can actually pull down the entire project like a file-based system locally and use command line as well as your regular code where you can actually build further logic and connect to your backend and do a lot of your backend logic over there. And then also means with that, that also gives the ability for version control. So you can literally work with teams spread across different parts of the world. So that's the whole idea behind the Actions Builder to some extent. So this is the Actions Builder. So we'll just go through with the UI, understand the UI first, and then from there we can actually move on to see how we can build something for using the new Actions Builder. So the first thing is, once you create a project in Actions on Google Console or the Actions Console, you see the top menu. So you have the overview, develop, test, deploy, analytics. And everything is aligned in such a way that as and when you move across all these areas, you have everything as a developer, as a product manager, designer, you have everything that you need all in one specific UI, right? So the develop is where you actually build your application. Test is where you can actually test your application. Let's say you can do two things. One, once you develop, if you're using the same Google account that you're using in the Actions console with your phone as well, you can actually test it out directly in your mobile application as well. At the same time, the simulator would also give you different options like how does the action work on a smart speaker? How does it look on a mobile phone, or how does it look on a smart display? So you have different options, different devices. If you don't have a lot of them already, you can actually try it out directly using the simulator and see how the results are. And the next part of it is the menu. So on the left side menu, you have list of all the components like intents. So we kind of touched upon intents during Dialogflow, right? So intents, all the intents are specified here. We also have scenes. So scenes is a new concept. So you see over here, these are the scenes. So when I say scenes is a new thing that is part of the actions builder, is scene is where you can actually have your logical bits of what a specific conversation part should look like, and all the components inside is linked to one scene. And then third, you have the build area. So as you can see, you exactly know how the conversational flow is happening. So it's almost like giving you like a wireframe or a blueprint of how your conversational flow is. So here you can see it's the main invocation. From the main invocation, you actually move on or transition to a different scene called start, right? And then within start, you have different conditions and responses that you do. And from there, based on different intents within that scene, you navigate to different or transition to different scenes or end the conversation. So that's basically what the build area is. And finally, you have the details area. Whenever you click on a specific item within the build area, you can see that it will automatically populate or open up a pop-up with configuration screen. So you can quickly click on the item, choose from the drop-down which intent that you want it to link to. If you have your own backend logic, you can actually select a webhook and mention it over there. Or if you want to transition to another scene, here you can see under transition, you can click Google Fact, which will transition from this to that specific scene. So this is basically the actions builder. It's very simple for anyone to actually start building conversational actions, because it actually gives you a complete wireframe or blueprint of how you design your conversations. So before we actually start building, let's actually understand some of the core components. So scenes are nothing but a building block of your action that processes users' input and then typically generates a response to the user. And custom intents often activate other scenes, but scenes can also become activated in other ways. We'll get to see that today. So custom intents is where you define your own user input, like define user input that the action can understand. You define your training phrases. So with conversational actions or applications, unlike hardcore if-else conditions and logics, here how we handle conversations is, or how we design conversations is by creating intents and then training the machine learning over here. So how the training is done is you actually train the voice application or action on what your users might actually say for a specific intent. So for example, I mentioned about setting up an appointment. So if that intent called appointment is an intent, I can actually say feed in different training phrases. I would like to set an appointment tomorrow at 3 p.m. I can also give a training phrase like set an appointment tomorrow, or I would like to set an appointment 2 days from now. So these are like different training phrases of what the user might actually say. So as a conversation designer and developer, all you would be doing is to actually train the phrases. So give it as much as training phrases for the machine learning to understand, okay, these might, all these training phases that the user says, if it matches similar to what is being told or trained within the application, it knows that, okay, I need to, this is the intent that the user is actually talking about. So when a user says something that matches or is similar to a training phase, the corresponding intent is matched. And finally, what are training phases? I think I already mentioned that. So think about examples of what a user might say to match an intent. The assistant NLU, so NLU is nothing but natural language understanding, engine naturally expands the training phases to include other similar phrases. So one of the other advantages of actually using the actions builder is this new NLU. So if you're used to using Dialogflow, you know how great the NLU in that is. With all of that being built into one platform now with the actions builder, this NLU is even quicker and faster because you don't have to navigate across two different platforms now to pass the information. So it's actually better and it's actually faster as well when you're building it using the actions builder. And transitions, I again mentioned, when you want to transition from one scene to another scene, you can actually use transition for that. And one of the other things that I would highly encourage everyone who's actually building conversational actions is to actually go ahead and use and leverage Ssml. So Ssml is nothing but speech synthesis markup language. So it pretty much is very similar to how you have HTML. So as you can see over here, you have the speak tag, and then anything within that, you can automatically use Ssml for it. So for example, this one, instead of trying to convert this into like a word, it will actually read out as characters, Ssml. Or if you'd like to have a break while having conversations, you want to have a delay of 3 seconds, you can actually add a break time over here. If you'd like to add audio to your actions, you can actually do that as well. So Ssml is actually a great way to actually enrich your conversations, make it more engaging and rich as possible. So I do have a demo over here if you actually listen to this closely.
Come in. Welcome to the terrifying world of the imagination.
So as you can see, instead of just having a simple response back, voice response back, or a simple text response back, if you use Ssml, you can use a mix and match of both conversations as well as audio files, background music, to actually set the theme of what your action is all about, right? So if you just imagine this, like you have an action called, let's call this spooky or something like that. So when you say talk to spooky, if the action gets triggered, and the first thing that I say is, come in, welcome to the terrifying world of imagination. I mean, that doesn't give you any feel or any theme about what the action is all about. But with the use of Ssml and your creativity, you're kind of giving the user a feel of what your action is all about, right? It's horror based or it's spooky. It's theme. It has its own theme, so the user would be more interested in your conversational actions. So if you actually look at this one, so you have like a sound of a distant thunder and the monster alien growl. So both of these are kind of overlapping. So before the first thing ends, you have this being played, and before this ends, you have this being played. So all of this is running parallelly, and the reason why it's happening is the code would pretty much be something like this, right? So it's similar to this. So who invented the internet? You can actually put it under like tag, and within here you have the media tag where you can actually say, okay, this is the ID. I'm giving it a specific ID for this, and then begin at 0.5 seconds. And the next one is for this specific part of the tag, let's say that question dot end plus 2 seconds. So once this end plus 2 seconds, start this. And then here you can also see when the sound of this audio file needs to be played. So you can also adjust the sound level, like -6 decibels or +6, where it will increase the sound as well. So you can actually do a lot of fun things with SSML. As much as possible, I'll try and see if we can include SSML in today's session as well. And for people who are looking for these kind of sound libraries, Google actually provides that, so you can actually check out the sound library. You do have a lot of these different themes where you can actually use different sounds and directly integrate with your application. But if you have your own sound, make sure that it is HTTPS enabled. You can put it in like Google Cloud Storage and refer the URL in your applications as well. So I can see that Tibor is saying the Actions Builder is pretty new. Yes, the Actions Builder was launched very recently. So yeah, do check it out. We'll actually build something right now. So I always try to end this session by actually building something so that you guys know how easy it is. I hope all this, the first phase of our session today, where we explained about what is a virtual assistant, what's Google Assistant, its role, why is it important for us as a developer. Then from there, we moved on to what was the old way, which was going back and forth between Dialogflow and Actions on Google. We learned about the core components of the Actions Builder. And finally, we also looked into SSML. So SSML is great. And let's actually go ahead and build and learn from it. So, and for those who are actually wondering, like, how can I get more in-depth, a walkthrough about the entire Actions Builder? Do check out one of the episodes. So I was actually happy and actually very glad that Jessica from Google, so we did like a session, a video together where we went through all of the questions. So I was sitting on the other seat just like you guys, and we were going through all the questions I had from my end, which I feel would be useful for you guys transitioning from the old way to the new, and why Actions Builder makes sense. And at the same time, she actually takes us through the whole 1 hour of how you can go through every component of the Actions Builder. So do not worry. This specific session that I'm doing today will try and cover some different parts that's not part of it. But if you want to understand like in depth of Actions Builder, I would highly recommend you to check these videos out. That being said, the first thing that you need to do is go to console.actions.google.com. Okay, so if you're doing this for the very first time, I would highly encourage everyone to do 2 things. One is, if you're doing this for the first time and you would like to see your action available on your phone as well, so what you do is go to Google and search for so you can actually search for activity controls. So whenever you want to try these actions out directly in your phone, make sure that this is enabled and these checkboxes are enabled. Once you're done with this, you're good to go. So I just don't want you guys to miss out on that, because you might actually do the entire conversation. You might want to try it out on your phone and you might receive an error. So this is how you actually tackle that in the beginning. The next thing is to go to console.actions.google.com. As I mentioned, this is a developer platform where you actually build for extend the functionalities of the Google Assistant. Your screen might be different if you're coming here for the very first time. I do have some demo projects over here. So what I can do is go ahead and click on new project and give it a project name. And once you do that, you can actually see different options. So if you're building for smart home, this is it. If you're building like a trivia game, you can actually try this one. And since we are building a custom conversational action over here, we're just going to click on custom. Okay. So next thing you do is hit next. Again, over here, you still have all of these different options, right? You blank project, but you'd like to see like sample projects to actually see how other projects are being done. These are some different ways of actually going out there and learning. Like if you'd like to see how to integrate with Firebase Firestore database, you can actually click on this and see all the different components that's involved in that. Facts about Google is another thing where it includes system intents and a few customizable user interactions. So you do have all of these options. So since we want to kind of build it from scratch, let's go ahead and click on blank project and start building. So from here onwards, I would constantly be having a glance at the chat. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave your comments so that I can answer that. Okay, so here we go. The first thing is once you select a blank project, and this is why I actually like the actions builder. So here you can see everything is available. Like this is the top menu that we kind of talked about. It immediately tells you what to do. And if you can also see that you have this message over here on the top as well. So it's about the new announcement of the Actions Builder and Actions SDK. You can watch the video over there as well to learn more about the Actions Builder. So this, typically the display name is, here I can say something like GDG Cloud Demo or Cloud London Demo or something like that. But again, you have to use your action name. So the display name or the action name, choose it wisely. Google also has policies or best guidelines on what to choose. You cannot choose like brand names that don't belong to you, of course. So all of those things are restricted. So I'm just gonna leave this empty because right now we are still just starting to begin. Once we are done with it, probably you can later add the display name. You can also choose what voice that your application needs, like whether female 1, female 2, male 1, male 2. I'm just going to leave that as it is, not going to make any changes to that as well. So as you can see, in terms of the flow, the next thing is the main invocation. So think about the main invocation like this. Whenever the user says talk to, let's say if we had specified a name over there, like an action name or a display name, here it would have shown that. So here, if you don't specify an invocation name, always remember the way to actually invocate that is by using talk to test app or talk to my test app, and it will automatically invocate that. So the main invocation is when the user actually talks to your voice action name or action name. So whenever you talk to the Google Assistant with this specific phrase, it then understands, Google Assistant understands that, okay, I need to make sure that I pass this entire conversation back to this action, voice action. And from there, it then goes into the next part of that. So which is basically, think about the main invocation as your starting or a greetings page, right? Or a greetings scene. So here what I'm gonna do, here you can see that it has something called as, and the way you can actually do this is you can also do this. So the way right now is whenever the invocation is triggered, it would go to your action and it will end the transition to end the conversation. Very simple, right? So whenever you want to make any configuration to it, all you have to do is click on this and it will pop up this screen, like a configuration screen or a detail screen. So here, what we can do is, let me see if I can make this a bit more interesting with the things that we've learned, right? So here you can see we have speech tag. So right now, if you just go ahead and start testing out, it will just read this one. It will say start building your action by defining main invocations. So without that, with that being said, I can just go ahead and let's see if we can paste some of these contents over here. So I have something here which says, greetings Earthlings, welcome to the virtual space of GDG Cloud London. Based on your clothes, you're not from around the space. It looks like you're on your way to an epic journey. So that's basically the speech tag that I've given. So let's go ahead and save it. Okay, so if you do this, you can actually see that whenever you're running the application, this is the text that gets read out. So you'll hear the voice, as well as if you're on an Android phone or any display, it will actually show the contents as well. So the other thing that you can also do is, you see at the bottom, you have suggestions and you also have content. We'll get to suggestions in a bit. So contents is basically like if you'd like to add like a card, like a title, you can do all of those things over here. So let's actually don't add any contents for now. Let's save this. Let's actually try and see if our application is working. And again, for those users who are actually trying this out, if you did find that you've done your changes, but it's not reflecting back into the simulator. So right now we've clicked on test simulator. And if it is not reflecting on your simulator, Google is aware of it. Sometimes it works, sometimes doesn't. So it takes a bit of time to actually reflect it back on this specific screen. So the way you actually trigger this, your application, is by multiple ways. You can either click on the icon and talk to it. You can also click on this suggestion tab. And on the right, you can see that you have different options. So if you're building for smart displays, you have that. If you want to build for your phone, you have that speaker, smart speakers, you can choose this as well. Okay. So the first thing to do is let's go and trigger this one out and see if our application.
The test version of my test app.
Greetings, Earthlings. Welcome to the virtual space of GDG Cloud London. Based on your clothes, you are not from around this space. It looks like you are on your way to an epic journey.
Okay, so we have a simple speech going on right now, speech response going on right now. So let's actually spice it up a bit. Okay, so what we can then go back is go to the develop tab, go back to your main invocation. Okay, and what we can do from here onwards is, so we have speech, we also saw content. So what I'm gonna do next is, let's go back here. So as I said, you can add a content like this, right? At the same time, I can add content like this as well. So what I'm doing over here is, again, I'm specifying to have a content, and the content is nothing but a card. Within the card, I have like a title, I have a subtitle, I have a text field, and keep this in mind. The speech and the text over here are completely different. And the reason why you do that is always remember that most of your conversations should be voice driven. So make sure that the majority of the information is there out there in terms of voice. And your text should just be a high level overview or just redirecting the user of what the conversation should be, right? So I have a simple thing over here, and then I've also added like an image. So let's see if this one works. Okay, go back to the test tab. And one of the other cool features about the Actions Builder is the event logs. So over here on the right-hand side, if you're building conversations as and when you build more and more complex conversations within using the Actions Builder, you can actually go through and see the entire flow over here. So from this scene, it went to the next scene, and what exactly happened, all of that, you can actually debug your entire application using this section. So I'm just gonna do talk to my test app and see if it reflects. If not, we can reset the test and check it out as well.
The test version of my test app.
Greetings, Earthlings. Welcome to the virtual space of GDG Cloud London. Based on your clothes, you are not from around this space. It looks like you are on your way to an epic journey.
So here, as you can see, instead of just having a simple text all over the screen, we've kind of minimized it. We spiced it up a little. So we have a card view over here with title description. We have an image to specify what it is. And then we also have a text field or a display field to actually give a high level overview of what the conversation is. But the thing to remember here is our conversation, the speech was different from the text. So the text, as you can see, is very little. You can actually have a different text altogether as well. And the speech was actually explaining much more in detail. So these are some of the important concepts that you need to understand from a conversation design standpoint. So you can actually use these existing tools directly from the Actions Builder, right? So we kind of went from adding a simple speech to adding a card, a content with card, with title, text, and images. And what I would like to do next is we went through speech as well, right? So we went through like how to use Ssml to kind of make it even cooler. So let me see if I can add this one. So here, just so that you know, what I'm doing over here is the entire speech tag that we added first, which was just simple text. Here, I'm just gonna add Ssml over here with speak tags. And I'm gonna add greeting. And you can see that with emphasis. Let me see. Yeah. So I'm gonna emphasize on the greetings earthling part. So you can see that I have a tag called emphasis level strong. Then I have a media, and I'm specifying the timings of when it should start playing, which message. And I also have an audio that starts playing in the beginning. Okay, so I have like an alien beam audio that I pulled out from the contents. So all I can do is I can just copy this, go back, and paste it over here. And I'm just going to save this. And if at all you make any mistakes over here, the Actions Builder would automatically highlight it to which line the formatting is wrong. And if you're using this for the first time, you also have YAML as well as JSON representation. So if whichever you're comfortable in, you can actually go ahead and use these. Okay, so let's save this and just test it out. So we are still in the main invocation, and we're just gonna go and see. And the other thing to note over here is, here right now, once this prompt, so we call these prompts. So prompts are where we actually give our responses. So once we are done with this prompt, what actually happens is the transition is to end the conversation. So that's what exactly that happens while we test out our application as well. So go ahead and click on test. So let's see if our Ssml is actually working right now. If not, we can reset and see if that works. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on Talk to My Test tab.
Let's get the test version of my test app.
Greetings, Earthlings. Welcome to the virtual space of GDG Cloud London. Based on your clothes, you are not from around this space. It looks like you are on your way to an epic journey.
So I don't see that reflect the action that we built. So let me go back and see. So this is some of the things that, since this is pretty new, these are some of the things that you would need to handle as well. So I'm just gonna go and see if everything is fine. Save this. And it does take a bit of time in the beginning. Once you get the hang of it, it's pretty easy. You can actually start designing your entire thing and come back and test it over here as well. So if you guys have any questions during this time, you can actually let me know. I can see that, okay. Yeah, the card and the display view is actually pretty cool as well. Let me see if this works.
That.
Greetings, Earthlings. Welcome to the virtual space of GDG Cloud London. Based on your clothes, you are not from around this space. It looks like you are on your way to an epic journey.
So it definitely did work this time. So if you actually listen carefully to the conversation, where the greetings earthling was emphasized, so that was a different tone, and you could see that there was like an alien beam background music that's being playing in the background, as and when the conversation, like, welcome, based on your clothes, you're not from around the space. So all of that specific greetings was mentioned. So this was a classic example of how you can use Ssml to spice up your conversational action. So let's actually go ahead next and start looking at some of the main components of the actions builder. I know that we are running out of time. I would like to quickly show you some of these items, and then you can actually follow the tutorials online or go to my channel and go through step-by-step tutorials to actually build some of these. Because these are things that's not covered in any of my videos. So this session over here actually is the first time where we are actually seeing some of these components over here. So let's go back. We have a main invocation. Right now, what we're doing is we have a prompt. Whenever it's invocated, we have a simple prompt that speaks out, right? But it transitions and ends the conversation. Instead of ending the conversation, what I can do is I can go ahead and create a new scene. So over here in this box text field that you have over here, you can actually specify what the scene is, or you can also go to scenes over here and create a new scene over here. Let's go and try this one over here. Click add. So immediately you can see how the UI has changed, right? From our main invocation, whenever the prompt, after the prompt is set, it would then transition to the start scene. So in the start scene, if you want to go, what you can do is first save this. So if you want to actually navigate to the start scene, you can actually go over here and click on scenes. But the best part of the actions builder is you can follow the flow, conversational flow, and then, okay, I want to see what's happening in this scene. So all I have to do is click on that. It will open up another tab called start scene. And within that scene, you can see from our main invocation, we go transition to our start scene. And what happens under the start scene is what we'll be actually seeing right now. So the first thing you can do is you can do a lot of things under um, one specific scene. Here you can see on enter. Conditions is you can have a condition until and unless that specific condition is met. You can keep, so you can have different slots. So let's take an example as our appointment scheduler, right? You need to capture the person's name, phone number, date, and time. So you can actually specify all of that under slot filling and only match the condition when all the slots are filled. So you need to capture all of this information, only then match a condition so that you can transition to another scene. So those are conditions. Custom intents is again within this scene. If you want to transition to add different intents to be part of the scene, you can do that as well. So let's actually go ahead and take this to the next level. So let's go ahead and add on enter. So whenever we come to this scene on enter, I'm just gonna choose a prompt again. You can also choose your webhook, define your webhook over here, and then handle this directly in your backend of like Cloud Functions. But over here, I'm just gonna go over here and give in. I'm gonna say, before you continue on your quest, would you like your fortune told, right? So let's hit save. So what happens is, based on our main invocation, it transitions to our start scene. In the beginning of the start scene, the first thing that we do is we give this specific response to the user. Before you continue on your quest, would you like your fortune told? And then based on this, what you can then do is you can provide some suggestions to the user, right? So I can say, you can click on suggestions here, and over here you can quickly say yes, and you can also say no. And here you can see that we've created like a custom intent over here. We've not yet created the intent, but we are suggesting that based on this response, the user would either say yes or no, right? So let's go ahead and save this as of now. And what will happen here is it will come to this conversation. We are suggesting within the display, we are showing suggestion chips saying yes or no, or the user might actually say yes, yep, no, or anything related to that specific intent. So we have to create an intent. So in that case, what you can do is come here under custom intent handling and create intents over here. So first thing I'm gonna do is, right now we don't have any intents, so I'm just gonna create an intent over here called yes. And I'm also gonna create another intent called no. Or for this example, I will also go over here and do that. So here you can see you have all of your intents. These three intents that you see over here are system intents. And this is the one that we created, our custom intent. You can also create another one called no here. Once you create no intent here, you can always go ahead and immediately choose that from the dropdown. Hit save. Right? So interesting things that the actions builder gives us: errors and warnings. You have specified intent handling for yes in local, and non-empty transition. So it's talking about what are the different things that it doesn't have. So what we can do is, so what happens, you've defined the intent, what exactly happens after that, right? So if the person says yes, I'm gonna just give a different response over here. And if the person says no, again, send a prompt or a response back saying, save all of these. And the other thing to keep in mind is once this is done, we also need to transition. So just for the sake of this completing this action, I'm just gonna have end conversations for both. So first for yes as well as for no. Okay, so we are pretty much done with the start scene. So we move from the main invocation, we come here, we check what we ask the user before you continue on your quest, would you like your fortune told? We have yes and no as suggestions. So the user might either click on yes or no, or he might actually give input like through voice saying like, yes, I would like to know that, or nope. So based on that feedback, it will then do the custom intent matching. And if it was yes, it would then choose this prompt. If it was no, it would choose this one. And finally, it would end the conversation. So that's how easy the whole conversational flow is, as you can directly visualize what exactly is happening from scene to scene. The other important thing is now that we have created like an intent, we need to train it, right? So here you can see, I'm just gonna give yes, this, just gonna give Y as well, just in case if the users are typing this using their chat, they can do that. And we have 4 training phases. That should be enough, like the minimum. If you just have like 2 or 3, it would still show you an error warning saying that at least have 2 more, or 4. So I can see no intent. So you can see that we have an error over here which says no intent contains no training phases. So that's perfect. So we go back over here, click on no intent, add training phases. So we say no. Okay, so these are the training phases. So designing conversational actions is as simple as making sure you add training phases and make sure you build the entire flow. Let me look at the chat. Okay, so we have our main invocation. We created, it goes to the start. From start, we have on enter, we have like an initial response back to the user asking for whether he would like to continue on the quest. If yes, then we created a yes intent, and then it would read out a specific message and end the conversation. If it was no, read out the same, a different message, and end the conversation. Let's see if all of this works right now. So let's go to the test simulator and actually try this entire application out. So now that we are over here, let's trigger the action by talk to my test app.
Let's get the test version of my test app.
Greetings, Earthlings. Welcome to the virtual space of GDG Cloud London. Based on your clothes, you are not from around this space. It looks like you are on your way to an epic journey.
So our application has still not properly reflected onto the test simulator. Let's try this one more time.
Here's the test version of my test app.
Greetings, Earthlings. Welcome to the virtual space of GDG Cloud London.
No, it's still not reflected. Let's go back to develop and see if we have any issues anywhere. So we go to the start, we prompt and see if everything is fine. Just say if it's just something to do with our test simulator not actually reflecting. So let's go back to test again. And hopefully, so the way how it works is, apart from our initial greeting, you should now start seeing the next conversation. Would you like to go on a quest, right? And we also have suggestion chips that needs to be shown. So let's see if this works.
Test version of my test app.
So now you can see that
Greetings, Earthlings.
we have our suggestion chips showing
Welcome
over
to the
here.
virtual space of GDG Cloud London. Based on your clothes, you are not from around this space. It looks like you are on your way to an epic journey.
Okay, so you have yes and no. So you click on yes.
Your future depends on the aid you choose to use for your quest. Choose wisely. Farewell, stranger.
Okay, and then we have that specific intent triggered and the prompt for that as well. So we did have another condition over here called on enter. So there's still something wrong with this specific speech tag that was not triggered. But you get the point over here. I know that we are running out of time. You can definitely check a lot of these things using the tutorial videos that's there. And again, for those who are not aware of who joined in the middle, I have a YouTube channel called Tech with Such. So you can go to youtube.com/Tech with Such. And the link for all of these are actually available in the slides as well. And subscribe to the channel, click the bell icon so that you can be notified for future videos. And for the next part, I would like to answer some of the questions if there's any. Okay, what about conditions? Okay, so conditions is you come here, you click on a condition, you can add a specific condition over here. So let's say the conditions can be different things. One of the conditions is, okay, only when all these slots are filled, you can actually go on to like a specific prompt and end the conversation or move on to the next scene. So conditions are where you can actually add a condition and check for different scenarios. If you want to know what are the different syntax or conditions available, this is where I love the actions builder. You can click on these help sections and it will actually give you everything. So for example, over here, if the scene.slot.status is equals to final. So as I mentioned before, you can actually copy this, put it in this condition. And if you have slots over here to capture information for name or any kind of information that you want, you can add these slots and the condition will check the status. Has all these slots being filled? If all the slots are filled, then it will match this final condition. And then you can actually specify a prompt over here and move to a separate scene, or you can end the conversation. So the other thing is, what if I want to transfer parameter from one intent to another? You need to be more specific in that. So think about, again, this is some of the different concepts between coming from Dialogflow and the actions builder. So in Dialogflow, every intent was tied down to like a response section. But here you can see it's not like that. Here in actions builder, everything is selected, like everything is consolidated to scenes. And what you could do is there are other variables, whatever the variables that you want to hold, you can actually save it in session variables, and then pass it across different scenes as well. So that's not an issue. You can actually do that. I can see what about remembering context. So you don't.
Today, he took questions throughout all the presentation. In the end, thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Amanda. I have one final question over here. What about remembering context? So this is from Meeta. So Meeta, I know where you're coming from, context in Dialogflow and all of those things. So think about context and think about scenes. So here in Actions Builder, the context part is actually your scene. So anything to do with this part of the scene is all handled within, all the components are specified within that scene. That's how you handle it. So if you're transitioning from Dialogflow to Actions Builder, if you're trying to link these two, these are some of the things. And we've kind of gone through all of this in the tutorials as well. Yeah. Yes, Amanda.
Okay, there is one final comment here. This is a great rework of the previous Actions console. The visuals align better and give more understanding of the logic of the conversation. Yeah, so people seem to be very thankful and like they learned a lot today. So as such, that this is a very brand new tool that came out just a little time ago, and we're very lucky to have him here. And as he said, as he was saying these things, some of these things he hasn't even said before. So it's really cool to have you here. And again, with all the pandemic, there are so many bad things going on, but one of the good things that it's allowed us is to interact with people anywhere in the world, really. So if you have any questions, maybe you're going to start building things after you saw this talk, it's still very approachable to speak to him. So if you have any questions, talk to him, talk to myself as well. I'm here to help. Carlo has one more thing. Come on, focus it on talk 3 seconds later. Those are amazing guns. Oh, the gun. Yeah, there's quite a collection here. But yeah, focusing here. Just to finish off, since we're 2 minutes going over time, thank you so much, Sash. And I shared with them the slides to the presentation here. And if there's anything else you need, just talk to him. He's approachable anywhere on the internet, really.
Thanks a lot, everyone. Thanks a lot, Amanda, for inviting me to GDG Cloud London. It's actually fascinating to kind of see the amount of involvement that you all have as community. I can definitely see the enthusiasm as well, and hopefully I did some justice to the Actions Builder by going through some of these components, and I'm planning on working on future videos as well, and look to kind of collaborate with you guys with some more amazing contents. With that being said, thanks a lot. Thank you all for having me, and hope you guys stay safe. And yeah, the links and the slides have all the information that you need. And if you have any trouble with anything, just let me know your feedback directly in Twitter, direct message me. Of course, Amanda is also a GDE. She's there to help you guys out as well. So feel free to ask us any questions, and we'll try our best to answer that.
Thank you very, very much. Stay safe, as he said. Okay, everyone. So we're going to have 2 more talks this week. So stay tuned on gdgcloud.com, and I'll see you soon. Bye.